will call our May meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation Authority to order. Item from the chairman, I do want to welcome Robert and look forward to all of us actually meeting and getting to visit. And I'm sure you've met with Jason and really had a study hall on COPTA, so we welcome you to our meeting.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Next item is approval of our minutes of our April 3rd meeting. Any corrections or additions by any of the trustees? If not, I'd have a motion to approve our minutes.
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye. Vote.
I don't see the voting buttons.
So this is where if you're on a single device, you need to toggle to your PrimeGov screen to be able to see the voting buttons.
I'm on my PrimeGov screen.
Yeah.
I can see the motion has been moved by Brent, seconded by Barney, but there's no big buttons like we had yesterday during training or Wednesday. Steve, are you seeing big buttons?
No, I don't have any either. It just says motion to approve. I've got the motion
Yeah.
set, but no voting button.
I received the buttons and just hit abstain.
I don't know why that. Okay, so Laura, can you tell me what you do see on your screen? Is it a white screen or is it a gray screen with a pop-up?
I see a gray pop-up up top. It says live on custom live streaming service, but what is on my screen says live meeting, Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority, 5120, items from the chairman. Moved by Brent Bryant, seconded by Barney Sempter, motion to approve, and there's
Zoom,
nothing else.
That is the Zoom screen. So you may need to hit escape on your keyboard so that you can click on your Chrome button at the bottom to switch back to your PrimeGov.
Gotcha.
And Mr. Chair, I do believe you'll need to do the same thing. I don't show that you have voted electronically yet either.
I can't figure out.
Okay, I would suggest that if Lisa Hubble could call roll call votes
Wait, I figured it out.
on the motions, and we will just proceed with roll call voting for everybody.
We can do
Thank
that
you,
by-
Lisa.
You're welcome. All right, Laura, did you find it? Yeah.
I
Laura
did. I found it.
Found it. She voted. All right.
All right, we do have a vote for everybody now, so we can continue to try this.
You abstained, Mr.
Yeah, I abstained since this is the first. Well,
He doesn't know whether the minutes are right or not because he wasn't at the meeting last time.
I actually sat in on the meeting, but just
Oh, yeah.
just to be safe.
Our next item is our consent docket. I would like Jason just to give us a brief explanation of item D, because it is kind of germane to what's going on in today's world. Just a brief explanation, if you would, Jason.
Sure.
Before we do that, can I ask a question? And this is for the staff. When we voted, it said items from the chairman. It didn't say approval of minutes.
Laura, this is Mickey. I just inadvertently clicked the wrong item. It is recorded in the record that it was for the minutes.
Great. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jason.
Okay. Yeah, so item D on the consent docket is a resolution authorizing the administrator to basically approve and authorize forbearance in certain situations with regards to COTPA business. In particular, it would apply to the agreements that we have with our tenants. We have tenants, as most know, in the Arts District parking garage, along with a tenant in the Santa Fe Depot. The forbearance provisions could also apply to streetcar platform sponsors, as well as any of the vendors that we have for our transit advertising. The arrangements that we have with our transit advertising vendors, one in particular requires a minimum payment to the trust, regardless of the amount of advertising that is sold. And so again, by offering and working with our tenants and our vendors in some limited situations on forbearance options, the intent would be to keep that business relationship moving forward and keep our tenants in our space.
All right, thank you. Any questions by any of the trustees? Then I would have a motion to approve our consent docket.
Move approval.
Second. All in favor say vote yay.
Yay.
All right, thank you. Next is, we've got 4 items for individual consideration. Item A is a professional service agreement with Goodyear Tire and Rubber for bus tire leases. Estimated cost $250,000. Anything, Jason? Just a brief. Is this just a normal renewal?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. This is a renewal that comes around about every 3 to 5 years is when we request proposals for our tire leasing arrangement that we have for bus tires. And this one's actually been a project that's been in the works, as you can tell, really going back to November when the trust authorized us to release a scope of work for advertising. We received a couple of proposals, one from Goodyear, one from Michelin. Goodyear has actually had the contract at least, I believe, for the last 10 years. They were the proposer that was recommended by the evaluation committee in this situation as well. And so with approval of the item, we'll continue that relationship with a new agreement with Goodyear for the next 3 years with 2 one-year renewals. Really the only significant change to this particular contract versus previous contracts we've had with Goodyear is as part of the leasing arrangement, Goodyear actually has employees on site here that do all of our tire work for us on our equipment. And so now that we're operating 7 days a week, we'll have that Goodyear support staff here 7 days a week as well with this contract. And then estimated cost annually is about $250,000 on our tire expense.
All right, thank you. Any questions by any of the trustees? And I would have a motion to approve item A. Second by Steve. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yay.
I lost my voting box again, so I'm trying to figure that out. Sorry, I vote yay.
You're not sitting next to me, so you didn't have my help, did you?
Sorry, I had it. I just can't find it again, so I don't know what's going on.
Passed unanimously. Item B is Public Art Commission Agreement for the convention center parking garage, estimated cost not to exceed $134,000. We did get an email, I'm sure all the trustees, with some of the proposed art renditions, and I guess Barney served on the committee, so I'd let Jason bring us up to date on that, and then if Barney has any comments, let him give them.
Sure, thank you. So yeah, this item B is an agreement with Martin Donlin for the public art that will be on the convention center parking garage. And as you mentioned, Chairman, the trustees have been provided with some renderings of what that project will look like. But basically the art will be on the, the sides of the garage. So the west, south, and east sides of the garage should all have this artwork attached to it. The agreement is for $134,250, and that is to the artist for the art and coordination of the installation. This particular artwork will be fabricated using small, they're called DuoGuard fusion colored polycarbonate tiles, basically kind of like a little plastic tile that will be attached to the outside of the garage and configured in a way to represent the art. So the materials and that labor are included really in the contract for the garage, and then the artist will of course oversee the installation. I did want to mention that the Arts Commission met on April the 20th, and they approved this artwork. And I think we have Robbie Kinzel attending our meeting this morning, and of course goes without saying how instrumental she was in organizing and helping us get to this point. And we do thank our trustees that served on the selection committee as well, in addition to Councilwoman Nice, who also served on that committee. So yeah, this is an exciting part of the convention center parking garage, and I think we'll keep in line with, the Arts District and some of the other garages that the trust has built recently, and really setting them apart from some of the other downtown garages. So
Seems like in one of our committee meetings on parking that there was a presentation on the product and the tiles, so I think we all got to see that at one point.
Correct.
In the past. Barney, any comment or?
Well, there were 3 artists who submitted a final presentation to the committee that Robbie led us through, and it was unanimously agreed that Martin Doolin's artwork and the people that he put on the side of the building was the most spectacular. And so if it turns out anything like the proposal renderings, it will be pretty spectacular, especially from E.K. Gaylord Shields Street vantage point as people drive up and down that major thoroughfare, that they'll be able to see the images of the people that he's created. I think it'll be a pretty amazing piece of artwork. Steve Hill was also on the committee.
Comment, Steve?
No, I agree with everything Barney said. We're going to have a special piece of art on that garage, and it'll be pretty cool.
Good. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve item B? Second?
Move approval.
Aye.
Aye.
Yay. Motion passes. Item C is change order number 4 to the convention center parking garage, an increase of approximately $45,000. Jason, any comments, or Corey?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a few comments on change order number 4 here. You'll see in your packet, in addition to the memo, a document submitted by TAP Architecture that kind of outlines some of the details of the change order. But I'll highlight a couple of them. The the two biggest items in this change order are one, extending the size of the roof coverings on the stairwells that are on the top deck of the garage. And then also the other, I guess, more significant cost item is the fabrication and some installation of some plates on the top deck of the garage that will allow for the future expansion. As you'll recall, this garage was designed for us to be able to expand it if we ever needed to. And using these plates rather than columns as originally proposed will allow us to, to expand the garage in the future and basically not have to construct any additional columns at this time. In terms of costs, as mentioned, the change order is just under $46,000. And although it is our fourth change order, if you'll notice the amounts at the bottom of your memo, if you sum those amounts to date, we're less than 2% over the original contract amount. So I think in terms of costs anyway, we're doing a pretty good job of managing to that original contract amount as construction continues to progress.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item C. Second. All in favor, vote yay.
Yay.
Carries. Last item on the individual consideration is final acceptance of phase 2 of the maintenance facility improvements on South May. Final claim of a little over $83,000 and place the maintenance bond into effect.
Yeah, so with final acceptance of this project, we will wrap up phase 2 of our CNG fueling facility upgrades. We constructed the fueling facility itself, and we're planning to bring a final acceptance to the trust in June for that facility. But the other part of the CNG project was upgrading our fleet maintenance facility, basically the shop where we work on the buses. And there's a multitude of different improvements that we made to the shop. But if you think about working on the amount of CNG buses that we're going to now have, we had to do some things like upgrading some of the electrical. We had to replace some of the heaters in the shop. One of the big items, of course, was basically the air handling system. We have to be able to exchange the air within the facility very fast in the event of any type of CNG gas being detected. So those are the kinds of things that we were able to improve on our existing facility with this project. And so, as you mentioned, Chairman, with approval of this item, we will accept the project, put those maintenance bonds into effect.
Thank you. Questions? Have a motion to approve item D. Second. Second. All in favor, vote yay.
Yay.
Passes. Next item is ratification of payroll and vendor claims for the period of April 7th through April 28th. Unless there are any questions by any of the trustees, I'd have a motion to ratify. Second. All in favor say yay.
Yay.
Motion carries. Next is our financial reports, the schedule of revenues and expenditures, budget to actual for the 9 months ended March 31st. I think if the trustees kind of analyze the financials, their first 9 months are about as good as you could possibly hope for. The next month's probably gonna drag the financials down a little bit with what's been going on. So, Jason, if you'd have any comments about the financials.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Chairman, and I won't get into a whole lot of details with the financials this morning because, as you mentioned, really the last quarter of this fiscal year is going to significantly impact what we have in front of us today. But there are a couple of things I'll point out, and particularly with transit and parking. On the bus transit side, page 2 of your financial, I just really wanted to direct your attention, because we've been talking about this throughout the year, to our federal grant revenue. You'll notice that throughout most of the year, we were a little bit behind in our grant draws. Now we are more than caught up. In fact, we've exceeded our reimbursable grant revenue by $430,000. So we're about 10% over what we had anticipated through 9 months of the fiscal year. And so then when you compare total revenues to total expenditures, our revenues are now just slightly over our expenditures by about $65,000. Now, what we will expect to see moving forward on the transit side is we'll be able to see that federal grant revenue continue to come in as a reimbursement to offset some of our other revenue sources that we expect to decline. And that's all as a result of some of the CARES Act funding that we as a transit agency are eligible for. So what we're going to see moving forward, because our ridership has declined, our fare box revenue has declined, we're going to see some of those revenue sources decline throughout the last quarter. But at least for the rest of this year, we anticipate transit overall being made whole more or less by being able to draw on some of those additional grant funds that are intended to keep transit systems operating. And there's more details on that to follow, and we'll have obviously more information about that as we look at April's financials. But I just wanted to kind of give you a little preview of that we do expect to be able to sustain on the transit, thankfully due to another federal funding source. On the parking side, though, it is a little bit different. As we know, that is an enterprise fund. There's no grants, there's no tax dollars that go into our parking system. Our parking system is totally supported by the revenues that we collect from those that park in our garages and for those tenant spaces that we lease. And so if you're looking at the March financial, the B&A here, you'll see that our overall revenues are about $220,000 under what we had budgeted. And most of that variance so far is in our monthly contract revenue and our event revenue. And just wanted to be clear that on the monthly contract revenue, we've seen that come in under budget throughout the year. So that variance you see through March is primarily due to having less parkers in the Cox Center garage than what we had anticipated when we built the budget. However, on the event revenue, you'll see a variance there of about $140,000. Our event revenue and our transient revenue for the rest of this fiscal year are going to be virtually, zero, with no events and very few people coming to park downtown. So whereas we see overall through 9 months of the fiscal year, our revenues exceed our expenses by $1.2 million, we're going to see that surplus erode as we go through the next 3 months. Will it be it's not, we're not going to, use all of that surplus, but I just want to let you know that number will trend downward, and you'll have a better idea when we get the April financials put together. So thank you for the time to kind of walk through those variances.
Jason, can I ask a
Yes.
question? Will the federal disaster fund monies, revenues that we receive for the rest of the year be commingled with the other federal grant revenues, or can we see those separately so that we know what we're getting from the disaster side versus our normal federal grants?
Yeah, that's really a preference of the trustees. I think if the trustees would like to see that, we can certainly accommodate it.
Yes, I would. So,
Okay.
Barney, I know everybody on the finance committee got an email yesterday about a finance committee meeting, and that's one of the items that I asked Jason that we'll discuss at length in the finance committee, rather than doing it in the trust meeting. And my question is, will that finance meeting be in person, or will it be a teleconference, or do we know yet?
Yeah. Well, I was going to suggest another teleconference, but the issue is we don't know how many would show up from the public if we were to have too many people from the public that would exceed the meeting limits. We'd probably be better off just having that as another teleconference. But we can come up with some ideas.
If everybody on the committee will respond so we can get a date set. All right, any other questions on the financials? Then I'd have a motion to receive our financial reports. Second. All in favor, vote yea.
Yay.
Carries. Our program reports, and I visited with Jason, and I don't think we're going to have any extensive program reports, but I think you did say that Corey might have a little update on the convention center garage, or any comments
Yes.
you'd like to make, Jason.
Yeah, we could turn it over to Corey first to give us an update on the convention center garage, if you'd like.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Corey.
The garage is progressing on schedule. We still have a final completion date of early December. On the site, a couple of times this week, they're actually building out the office space for our parking operation on the first floor. On the fifth floor, this Sunday night, early Monday morning, we will do the third pour on the fifth floor of the garage, followed by about a week later, the fourth and final pour on the fifth floor of the garage. And then floor 6.5, the final floor, referred to technically as the camel hump, is currently scheduled to be completed on 6/5/2020. So it looks like our pouring of concrete will end this June, early June. Thanks for the comments on the art. Very pleased with that. I do want to specify that the tiles that we witnessed during the committee are not the actual tiles that will be used. They're very, very similar. And I have personally tried to break several of the tiles unsuccessfully, as they're mounted on the steel cables. So real life situation. Any questions?
Thank you, Corey. All right, Jason, any other comments on any of the programs?
Just a few comments about our transit system. Not so much the data on the transit system report, but just maybe an overall update on what we're doing in terms of protecting the public and employees, what our ridership is looking like. And I know we provided several ongoing updates to the trustees, but just as a refresher, we are seeing, some significant declines in ridership, of course, on the bus side. We're right around half of what we would normally do on any given day. Some days less than that. Streetcar ridership is down about 80% or so. So again, we're going to see those impacts at the fare box. At the same time, we've implemented social distancing on all of our transit vehicles. We continue to do the cleaning that I've briefed the trustees on numerous times. The one thing I wanted to spend a little bit of time on is just talking about some of the things we're doing to ensure the safety of our workforce, because our workforce, of course, interacts with the public on a daily basis. We are now doing regular temperature checks for employees that are coming into work. Everybody gets their temperature checked before they're allowed inside the facility. We now have the PPE that you would expect in terms of masks and gloves, and we've had some of that for a while now, of course. But I did want to let the trustees know that we have issued an order for a protective, basically a plexiglass type barrier that would provide the employees a little bit, some additional separation from customers as they board the buses. And again, that's all, consistent with, other best practices, not only that you see in the transit agents industry, but you also see in other places of business where you're starting to see some of these, devices that separate the customer from the employee. So anyway, those things are coming, and we'll have future reports. But I just wanted to let the trustees know that we're continuing to evolve and look at the way we're doing things and consistently try to improve based on industry feedback. Be glad to answer any other questions.
How's the retrenching or whatever of the river going? Are we going to be back up with the boats anytime soon?
The dredging is continuing. We do not have access to exchange. I don't know. I think Jeannie's on the call. Jeannie, are you able to comment on that? Or I should say Jeannie was at the meeting. But we can get you an update on the dredging schedule.
Any other questions by any of the trustees on our program reports? I have a motion to receive our program reports. Second. Passes. All in favor, vote yay.
Yay.
All right. Any comments by any of the trustees? I would say thank everybody. It's kind of a hard time and different way for us to have a meeting. Hope everybody takes care. Let's follow all the advice of the mayor and the governor and taking care of ourselves, and hopefully our city will get back to somewhat normal. And I just wish everybody to take care of yourselves, and we're slowly getting back. So I appreciate everybody and all the staff for putting this together. I know it's quite an endeavor to get the Zoom and get everybody on when a lot of us don't know much about it, so on the system. So I appreciate it, and I'd have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, does that? I don't know.
All in favor, vote yay.
Yay. I think I've already closed out of the meeting, so yay.
All right. There we go. All right. Thank everybody, and we'll see what happens at our next meeting, if we can sit back in person.